This is a presentation on the processes of cellular respiration. Let's get right into the material. So why is this process important? Well, cells need energy, usually to perform unfavorable reactions. Adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, provides a usable form of that energy for cells because the third phosphate group is unstable and ready to leave in order to engage in interactions and provide the energy for less favorable interactions. The process of respiration forms a lot of ATP, particularly aerobic respiration, which we'll get into in a minute. Larger biomolecules have energy, so they're broken down in respiration. Note that glucose breakdown is the focus of this PowerPoint, but other molecules can be broken down, converting that chemical energy in the large biomolecules into more usable chemical energy in the form of ATP. All right, glycolysis is the first step. It occurs in the cytosol. It's an anaerobic process, which means that no oxygen is required to undergo this process. It's a 10 reaction process, so there are 10 reactions within glycolysis, and the overall net equation is 1 glucose being converted to 2 pyruvate, 2 adenosine triphosphate, and 2 NADH. All right, after glycolysis, the pyruvate formed can be used in multiple ways. Under anaerobic conditions or outside of the presence of oxygen, it can be used for fermentation. In the case of mussels, this is lactic acid fermentation, which can cause fatigue due to the building up of lactic acid and accumulation of it in the muscles, as seen in that picture off to the side. And in the case of yeast, alcohol fermentation is used. This process recovers NAD+, so that glycolysis can happen again. Under aerobic conditions, the Krebs cycle occurs. So the pyruvate gets transported into the mitochondria, and this process is detailed on the next slide. So before the Krebs cycle, pyruvate becomes oxidized, converting to acetyl-CoA. The Krebs cycle itself is also known as the citric acid cycle. It's an aerobic process, meaning it requires oxygen. And because 1 glucose forms 2 pyruvate, this process can occur 2 times per glucose, so it can undergo 2 cycles per glucose. So the net equation takes acetyl-CoA, and that goes into just CoA, 3 NADH, an FADH2, and an ATP. NADH and FADH2 have most of the stored energy in the form of the hydrogen that they carry, and that energy needs to be converted to a more usable form still, which is the reason for the next process we're going to be going into. All right, so oxidative phosphorylation. This is an aerobic process. It's the major generator of ATP in aerobic respiration. Basically, it isolates a lot of hydrogen ions on one side of the mitochondrial membrane. The electron transport chain helps with this process, and it creates a proton gradient, which then ATP synthase uses that gradient to generate energy in the form of ATP. All right, so the complexes of the electron transport chain. We have complex 1, NADH dehydrogenase. This passes electrons from NADH to ubiquinone, which is represented with that Q, pumping hydrogen across the membrane in the process. Complex 2, succinate dehydrogenase, just accepts electrons from FADH2 and passes it to Q, but it doesn't pump protons across like complex 1. Complex 3, or cytochrome B through C1, the cytochrome B through C1 complex receives electrons from Q and passes them to cytochrome C, abbreviated as Cyte C, pumping hydrogen across the membrane in the process. And complex 4, or cytochrome oxidase, takes electrons from Cyte C and gives them to oxygen, pumping out 2 hydrogens per oxygen in the process and making water, which is why we breathe O2, because we need O2 in our systems to undergo this process. All right, ATP synthase. This biomolecule works by uh, pumping out a bunch of protons, and as the protons leave, part of the protein complex rotates. The rotation changes the conformation of a different part of the protein complex, which in turn catalyzes the production of adenosine triphosphate. All right, so why aerobic respiration is useful. Glycolysis by itself only generates 2 ATP, and the anaerobic processes that repeat glycolysis uh, basically just keep that cycle going instead of generating a lot more down the line. Whereas with aerobic respiration, there's a theoretical maximum yield of 30 to 32 ATP, which is markedly more, and by undergoing this aerobic process, or the process that uses oxygen and occurs in the mitochondria, basically a lot more ATP can be generated with just one glucose molecule, which is uh, extremely useful in generating the energy that different cells need in order to undergo all of their operations and perform all of the uh, processes and chemical reactions that they need to. So basically, aerobic respiration produces more energy than glycolysis alone, so aerobic respiration is a useful process on that front. Thank you.